How long have you been in the airport? Where are you right now?
3 days.
I am coming to you guys from Detroit this morning. I had a 6 a.m. flight from LaGuardia, and then I had to connect in Detroit. The flight to LaGuardia was delayed by about an hour, so we're going to be in Indy here, knock on wood, in a couple hours. Supposed to leave here in about 60 minutes. And then I'll post up in Indy, get right into the conference tournament stuff, and then obviously start a big weekend getting ready for the NCAA tournament in a setting unlike we've ever seen.
Man, it's like we all have been confined to our homes for the most part for the last year, but you get back in the airport, and what do you get? Delays at LaGuardia, just like we never left. Okay, so John, though, just X's and O's wise, you get to Indy. Do you have to, go into any kind of quarantine? And the reason why I ask is because I'm curious with, UVA, now they have a COVID positive. What does this mean for them? What are the protocols for when you get to Indianapolis?
Yeah, Maggie, it's a good question. I think the big thing for everybody to obviously understand is that, all teams coming to Indianapolis are going to have, obviously, a mandatory 7 negative tests for each person, each Tier 1 personnel before they get on the plane. So this is going to be obviously a very unique setting in this controlled environment to ensure that the NCAA tournament goes obviously as smoothly as possible. So I think it's important to know that everybody who's going to come from a Tier 1 perspective, players, coaches, people of that magnitude will have to have 7 negative tests before they can get on the plane for Indy.
John, as Selection Sunday is looming, give our audience a couple storylines that you'll be following going into the process on Sunday.
Well, I think, big picture, guys, I think when you look at the 4 number 1 seeds for the NCAA tournament, I think they're pretty well cemented right now. Obviously, Gonzaga and Baylor have separated from the rest of the pack all season. And then 2 teams from the Big Ten, Illinois and Michigan, look like the other 2 number 1 seeds. I think the unique thing is obviously the fact that we have so many different dynamics right now in terms of the big picture aspect of the sport. Can Gonzaga be the first team to go undefeated and win a national championship since Indiana in 1976? And also, we are getting ready for an NCAA tournament, without Duke and Kentucky. Also, we don't have a vintage team at Kansas. North Carolina is playing better. They're going to be in the ACC tournament semifinals coming up tonight against Florida State. But I also think, when you look at it, the door has never been more open for programs that haven't won multiple national championships to be in a situation to go to a Final Four and compete for one. That's why for programs like Illinois, Iowa, Houston, Baylor, the window is really open for them to do some damage. It's been the year of the outlier in college basketball.
Yeah, John, and that's what's going to make it fun because, the tournament's about upsets anyway, and maybe you're getting even more, possible Cinderellas. Can you give us someone who might really be on the outside, like a really, low or high seed that you think could do some damage in this tournament?
Well, if you guys don't have anything obviously going on from now till 2 o'clock, I could stay for the rest of the show, but I've only been invited for one segment. But, one thing to your point, Maggie, that I think needs to be brought up is this. Because obviously, there's usually geographic advantages for high seeds in the NCAA tournament. Duke has played games in Greensboro, so has North Carolina. Villanova has played games in Philadelphia or Brooklyn. Because all of the games are in Indianapolis, we are not going to have that built-in home court advantage, so to speak, or pseudo-home court advantage for higher-seeded teams. So I think you're going to see a scenario where the playing field will never be more level for a double-digit seed to pull an upset. To me, there's different tiers, though, guys, when you think about teams that can break open a bracket. I look at the first tier as being power conference teams that maybe didn't perform at a certain level the entire season, but are playing their best basketball now and can get to the second weekend. Oregon, to me, is obviously in that category. This has been a team that since Will Richardson came into the lineup has been dynamite. He's a starting point guard. He was a first-team All-Pac-12 player who missed the start of the season due to an injury. Oregon is 11-2 with Will Richardson in the lineup. Another team is a team that's going to play at Madison Square Garden tonight, and that's UConn. We knew UConn was going to be good with James Bouknight. I don't think we knew that UConn was going to be good with James Bouknight and dynamite defensively. And a guy to watch for UConn is Andre Jackson, their 6'6" freshman, who was the highest-rated recruit in the program, but didn't play early in the season due to an injury. He's a much different player than Bouknight, but defensively, he's going to change what they do. UConn is a team, I think, that as long as they can avoid a team like Gonzaga or Baylor in the round of 32 that has legitimate aspirations to reach the second weekend of the NCAA tournament.
John, yesterday's loss by St. John's. Are they on the out looking in at an at-large bid in the tournament?
Yeah, St. John's is no longer, I think, on the board for an at-large bid.
All right, what about Seton Hall? What more does Kevin Willard and the Pirates need to do to get in, besides winning the tournament?
Got to win the automatic qualifier, because the thing you have to remember now is, guys, with Georgetown beating Villanova, it's not going to give Seton Hall a quad one opportunity on a neutral court here coming up tonight. It would obviously give them an opportunity to play for a Big East championship, but Seton Hall is going to have to win 2 games to get to the NCAA tournament.
Jon Rothstein is our guest. Okay, what about Syracuse? Are they going to be sweating it out here on Selection Sunday, or do you think that they're going to get in?
Syracuse, as of now, is in the bracket, according to my calculations. Every year I keep, obviously, a log of 68 teams. Syracuse is in as of now. They played like an NCAA tournament team the last couple of weeks, played very well against Virginia. But, guys, Syracuse right now cannot have a bid stealer from another conference who's not projected to be in the NCAA tournament win their conference tournament and get an automatic qualifier. If you're a Syracuse fan right now, you're rooting against teams like Memphis, teams like Nevada, teams like Oregon State, who obviously are not projected to be in the field, but have a chance if they win 1 or 2 more games to win their conference tournament.
We're talking to Jon Rothstein. He's in Detroit right now at the airport, and he's waiting for his connecting flight to Indianapolis, which takes off about an hour from now, just to give you an idea of what Rothstein's doing with as he's chatting with us. Johnny, I'm curious about Iona and Pitino. They're taking on Niagara tonight in the MAC tournament semis. What about the job? And they've only played 15 games this year when you look at Iona. They've been hit hard by COVID-19 starts, and everything like that. What about Pitino and Iona here trying to get that automatic bid out of the MAC?
I mean, you guys, I think it's one of the more amazing stories and what has been one of the more amazing careers that really we've seen in our lifetime in coaching general. I mean, how many coaches could, have a pause of 2.5 weeks, due to COVID-19, which was, one of multiple COVID pauses this season, and not only advance in the conference tournament, but advance and beat the top seed in the conference tournament. Iona became a national story 2 days ago when it beat Siena. If Iona can find a way to win a couple more games and Rick Pitino's in the NCAA tournament, it is going to be obviously a major focal point entering the field of 68 next week.
You think they can?
Yes, Rick Pitino's the head coach, and, obviously with all due respect to anybody he's going to be coaching against here in the MAC tournament, I felt that when Rick Pitino was, the head coach of Louisville, and, I said this, that we did a show on CBS a couple of years ago, if you had one game to have, any coach it, who would it be? And I answered Rick Pitino, so I'm not wavering from that proclamation.
Yeah, it'd be like a surprising and yet at the same time not surprising at all that Rick Pitino in his first year at Iona would actually get to the tournament. Jon Rothstein, our guest. Okay, what about Rutgers? So, this is great. They break this 30-year drought of, no NCAA tournament appearances. It looks like they're going to be a lock. But what kind of seed do you think Rutgers is looking at, John?
It all depends, Maggie, on what they can do in the next couple of days. And the good thing about the Big Ten is this. You are always getting opportunities to beat quality competition. So Rutgers, if it could beat Illinois tonight and beat Iowa tomorrow, you are beating 2 of the top 8 seeds in the NCAA tournament. That would be substantial in moving them up seed lines. If they don't obviously emerge tonight in the game against Illinois, I think they're obviously safe in the 8-9 area.
John, I wanted to ask you mentioned about Gonzaga and Mark Few. They're undefeated. They got the test against BYU in their conference championship game, down 12 at the half. They win that game by 8 going away. A lot of people think it's the most talented Gonzaga team that Mark Few has ever had. Do you agree?
Because of the point guard position with Jalen Suggs, I'd have to agree. Now, this is a different Gonzaga team than the one that went to the national championship game 4 years ago in 2017 and came up inches short against North Carolina. It is not as physically imposing at the rim. It doesn't have guys like Shemek Karnowski or guys like Zach Collins to punch the ball as somebody takes it to the rim defensively. That is the one area that I would worry about if I'm Gonzaga. But the way that they can share the ball offensively, the different weapons that they have, guys, they're going to have 3 of the top 10 players in the country when you look at first and second teams All-Americans, in my opinion. When you look at Suggs, Drew Timme, and Corey Kispert, who the more and more you watch him is a spinning image of Joe Harris, made 3 straight threes the other night against BYU. And something that's not even really being talked about is Andrew Nembhard is Gonzaga's 5th best player. He's their 5th starter. He led Florida in minutes played last year before transferring. So it's championship or bust for Gonzaga. You know, a runner-up finish right now would constitute as a massive disappointment.
John, final one for me. It's about Villanova. You know, ever since the injury to Connor Gillespie, you know, what's your outlook now on Villanova and Jay Wright's crew?
I mean, they obviously don't have what they had. Do they still have enough to win a couple of games in the NCAA tournament? Sure, but I'd be lying if I told you that I expected Villanova to go beyond winning a couple of games in the NCAA tournament. I think if they could win 2 games in the NCAA tournament, it would be a remarkable accomplishment.
You know, John, the Big Ten, who are you the bigger believer in? If I give you Illinois, Michigan, Iowa, of those 3, which one of those 3 are you buying into?
I'm buying into Illinois the most right now because of Ayo Dosunmu, somebody who I think has a chance and a real chance to have the same type of run this year for Illinois that Kemba Walker had for UConn 10 years ago. And ironically enough, people forget that when Kemba Walker made that run in 2011, there was a freshman on that team named Shabazz Napier who kind of emerged during the NCAA tournament before he became the Shabazz Napier that we obviously fell in love with a couple of years later when UConn won in 2014. Andre Curvelo, a local New York product, has that type of ability to have a Shabazz Napier role for this Illinois team. He's a dynamic guard. He can change directions, really shifty. So obviously Illinois is my pick there. I'm concerned about Michigan's, I think, inconsistencies the last couple of weeks. They're getting ready to tip off against Maryland. I've learned in the last couple hours that Eli Brooks, their starting guard, is going to be a game-time decision due to an ankle injury. That hurts their depth. And I also think, you know, Iowa isn't getting enough credit for what it has. Everybody's wanted to chastise what the Hawkeyes hadn't had, but not a lot of people were talking about what Iowa does have. And they're another team, though, that needs to get healthy. Joe Wieskamp, their second-best player, went out of Sunday's game against Wisconsin due to an ankle injury. I'll obviously monitor that situation closely as the Hawkeyes get set to play Wisconsin tonight in the Big Ten tournament.
Johnny, last one for me, and that would be Loyola of Chicago. Great story. They've had a great year. What about them being kind of they can't fly under the radar because they're nationally ranked, but what about the chances of Loyola Chicago going on a great run if they get the right draw? They have to play the tempo game. They want to slow it down. But what about Loyola Chicago when the tournament rolls around next week?
Well, you just said it. They have to get the right draw because this is a team, unlike the team we saw in 2018. This is a vastly superior defensive team than the one that went to the national semifinals 3 years ago and lost to Michigan. I see a team, obviously, that if it can make three-point shots like it did against Drake in the Missouri Valley title game, would have a much different ceiling. And that's a big thing to watch, guys, in this NCAA tournament. The three-point shot being really a proponent to lift teams to new heights. And this is the example that I always use. 10 years ago when VCU went to the Final Four under Shaka Smart, the Rams averaged 8.3 made three-point shots a game during that season. When they went to the NCAA tournament, they averaged 12 made three-point shots a game. It's a stark difference, and it's obviously going to be a big factor for a lot of teams coming up over the next couple of weeks.
Well, Johnny, we appreciate the time. Safe travels, all right? Good luck hitting that connecting flight. Enjoy the airport for the next hour, and we'll chat again next week. We'll talk to you on Monday.
You got it, guys. Talk soon.
Okay.
All right. Jon Rothstein.
Thanks, John.